I think that's what every business who wants to scale has to do. I think it's fine when you're 0 to 10 employees, you do all that in your head. And then one day you're so big that what's in your head doesn't work anymore. And that's when you write it down. So you write down these processes, what your steps are, how to build all your peanut butter sandwiches. And then you figure out which ones you're going to keep doing manually, which ones you're going to do through automation.
Hey, it's the Profit Answer Man, Rocky Lalvani. If you're new to the podcast, check out my interview with Mike Michalowicz. It's episode number 2. If you want to hear about each chapter in the Profit First book, go back and listen to episodes 3 through 13. Episode 1 is the why and how. On the Profit Answer Man, we learn money mastery without all the complicated accounting mumbo-jumbo using a simple system. Your accountant is busy documenting your transactions and creating a rearview mirror of what happened. My guess is you don't even look at the reports they sent you. If you're like most business owners, you struggle with this. And it's not your fault. We aren't taught money in school, and accountants aren't taught how to be profitable. The Profit First system created by Mike Michalowicz works, and he certified me to help you implement the system in your business. Remember, the new equation is sales minus profit equals expenses. Let's face it, without cash flow, you can't pay your employees, buy needed materials, or pay your mortgage and support your family. I help you to do that and more, so you can focus on the parts of the business you love and receive the rewards for your labor and investment into your business. The stronger you are as a business owner, the more jobs you create, the better we are as a country. Small business owners are the backbone of America, and for that, you deserve to be well rewarded. Just remember, more revenue does not equal more profit. That's why we focus on the bottom line. Every month in 2023, we're going to do a live Q&A call for you listeners to get all of your Profit First questions answered, along with anything you might have heard on the podcast or you want to discuss about your business. They will be on the second Thursday of every month at 1 p.m. Eastern. There is a link in the show notes to register on Eventbrite. Come chat with me live. The best businesses are the ones that run themselves, where you, the owner, just have to have a few meetings a week. You do a thumbs up, a thumbs down, and you go back to enjoying life instead of working in the business. At the pinnacle, think of Warren Buffett. But there are many more who are much smaller business owners who get the same time freedom. How do we get there? By understanding that our business is a system and people run the systems. The more systems and processes you have that are easy to follow and have the ability to be properly measured, the faster you get there. That's our topic today with Paul Jackson, the founder and CEO of Method, an automation tool for QuickBooks and Xero users. Paul is a 2-time founder who believes in building software for small businesses that works just like they do. Welcome to the Profit Answer Man, Paul Jackson. It's great to have you join us today.
Thanks for having me, Rocky.
Excited for the conversation. Can you share a little bit about yourself and your business?
Sure. So I reside in Toronto, Canada. That's where I run the business Method. So Method is a CRM product for QuickBooks users. In a nutshell. I mean, we're a lot more than that. I'm sure we're going to get into that today. If you like, I can tell you how I got here.
I would love to hear that. Everyone wants a good entrepreneurial journey.
So this business is 13 years in. We have about 100 staff. But prior to this, I ran another company called QXpress. And I started that straight out of university. Didn't want to do the suit and tie job. I wanted to run my own business. I wanted to build things. And so I ran a software company called QXpress for 10 years. And that was for service businesses. So we're talking plumbers, electricians, landscapers who go out and do service on property, take work orders with them, record how long the jobs took, make sure they're profitable, and then put those invoices back into their accounting software. And so that business ran for 10 years, got acquired by a private equity company in New Jersey. Didn't want to move to New Jersey. So started up a company with a few of the others who were with me at QXpress. And we came up with the idea of Method around that same time. And here we are today running Method.
So let's talk about that a little, because the people you talk about that you were serving hate to do billing, right? They don't track any of their stuff. So I have rentals, right? My HVAC guy doesn't send a bill for months. I'm like, seriously, how do you stay in business? We have clients who are in the trades or in construction, and they're like, well, we can't close out this house because we still haven't gotten, the plumbing or the electrical bill. I'm like, how do they stay in business doing work and not billing you for 60 days? Like, how do they cash flow themselves? And how do they even know how much time they were there or what they used on that job? If you don't track it immediately, you forget it all.
It is shocking, and you're absolutely right. I think the problem is that the system that is sending the invoices is not connected to the system that's scheduling the work. And whether that system is a spreadsheet or a whiteboard on the wall of the office, or it's in their head, those aren't talking. So once the job's done, which is the craft, the passion, they're going to move on to the next job. And this thing that they don't want to do, which is the invoicing, just either doesn't get done or it gets done wrong or it gets done very late. And that was I think the insight we had really early on in that first business, which was, look, if you've got like 100 lawns to cut, service business cutting grass, those are the same 100 lawns every single week. If those on a schedule, you say done, 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 done. At the end of the month, that's a lot of invoices to send. But you have all the information. You have the customers. You have the item that was done, which is lawn cutting service. You have the price of the item because that was quoted way long ago. So you have all the information you need for invoices. If you could automate that invoice creation, it would no longer be an arduous process and it would be consistent every single time. So we built a system that basically said, take what was scheduled, create an invoice, pop it into QuickBooks. Then you have no excuse. So that was that business that grew and got acquired eventually.
So one of the things that you talked about before we hit record is that hole as you grow. Like I keep telling people, in order to grow, you've got to plan out your cash, because there are points in the business, and they're probably a lot bigger and longer than people think about, where you grow your business and your top line keeps going up and it seems like your bottom line keeps going down.
We definitely saw that in the service business, especially. I saw this chasm that these businesses had to cross. And the service business is around 300K. We dipped into that chasm and it didn't pop out again until about $1 million. And I think that's because each truck had 3 or 4 people on that truck, and they would go off with all the equipment in the day and they'd do the work. That's about $300,000, $350,000 around per truck. Now, what happens when you want your second truck? Well, you got to buy a truck. You need another crew of 3 or 4. And this time, you're not one of those 3 or 4. And it means you need to hire two foremen, whereas before you were the foreman and the worker. And now you're just a boss. And so you've probably lost a lot of the profitability, if not all the profitability that you had before. Same thing happens at 3. You still haven't gained the profitability back. It's not until you have your 4th truck that you're doing profitability. So how do you even get to that 4th truck? How do you get to the $1 million mark? That's the hardest part that most don't make it. And I think the reason why they don't make it is they haven't really written down what made them successful in the first place. What was it that drove their profitability? How did they approach each job? How did they make sure that the employees who are working really hard when they're on the crew are still working hard when they're on the second truck or back in the office? And that's the challenge a lot of them face, is how to scale themselves to that $1 million mark.
And we've talked that on previous episodes. The things that we like to look at is if I've got a service person out in the field and I'm paying them for 8 hours, how many hours are they billing out of the 8? So I can make sure that we're actually getting the utilization. And then how do I ensure that they're not running to Home Depot after every single call? Because that's literally taking up half their day, right? If you don't have your trucks not well stocked, not organized, and let's face it, tradespeople, they go and they pick up 6 parts, they use 2. Hopefully they build a client for the 2. What happened to the other 4? How are they accounted for in inventory? It's not unusual to see $50,000 of inventory lost in the back of a truck because it just got chucked because, it's not my money, right?
Yeah, I think that's where systems really come into play. And that's what we do now at Method, my current company, across many industries, is really finding out what those systems are per industry and helping those small business owners track those items, whether it's items in a truck or if it's a medical cabinet for a medical cabinet maker, or whatever it is. We help them write down a system and put it in the hands of their employees.
So when you say you help them write down a system, are you actually sitting down and doing this in paper form? Is it automated? How does that all look?
Yeah, it's actually a lot of fun. So when people go to Method, they probably are coming in for a CRM solution, which could be as simple as just customer acquisition or customer retention. But pretty soon when they're talking to our staff, they're talking about the whole quote to cash lifecycle. From the time someone's a lead to requesting a quote turns into an invoice gets paid back to the accounting system. That's a whole workflow. And when you start talking about the A to Z on that, then we open up a lot of process. And so when I talk about writing steps down, we help them systemize all the things that they do in their business. They're doing in their heads. They're doing on a whiteboard. They're doing on Excel. We help them write it down and we figure out which ones to automate first. And that's the hard part. What do you automate first? The ways we like to think about it are, what workflows are they doing today that are highly repeatable, doing over and over again? What's taking a very long time? What doesn't require critical thinking? What is the key person of the company still doing, or multiple key people still doing, where they're the bottlenecks? We'll figure out after they've written down the processes, which ones need to be automated, and then we'll actually automate them for them. I think I got an example for you. I was telling before with the guitar pick company. The guitar pick company, they call us up. They sell a lot of guitar picks, very well named, no name. I won't say their name is it on the show here. But her request was, hey, can you stop my employees from being able to send out invoices? It's very important to me. And she's the CEO. Okay, yeah, we can absolutely help you do that. We can block the send button on the invoice screen. But can we ask why? What's your process today? Let's write down the steps you go through. And it was quite easy to realize the reason why she wanted to block the sending of invoices was because invoices of a certain amount need to be paid through ACH. Invoices under that certain amount need to be paid by credit card. And she couldn't trust her employees to send out the invoices in the right email format, saying pay with ACH or pay with credit card. So she did it herself. And so that's where we stepped in with custom process that said something very simple, which is like, okay, if it's above a certain amount, change the template so that it sends out this email. Below a certain amount, change the template so it goes out with this email. And when the customer gets the invoice, only give an ACH option or a credit card option. Very simple process for us to actually automate for her. But then she was now out of the weeds. She was no longer doing invoicing, and her employees could actually send invoices for her.
She couldn't train that to the employees?
No. Shockingly not.
Is that hiring the wrong people? Is it a training issue? Is it because to me that I get it. It's like if then, if then else. If greater than this, do this, else do that.
But I think that's just one example probably across her entire business, right? Where there are so many things that she only trusted herself to do. And so for her, it was sending on invoices. For another company, it could be how I send out my estimates. I send the wrong estimate out. It could be tens of thousands of dollars of an incorrect quote. And so every business has their own critical things that they only trust themselves to do.
Is that a mindset issue that they only trust themselves? Or is it a control issue? Like, what causes that is it a fear?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think some people are born with the ability to scale themselves and some have to learn it. So I think when you're a small business and you're under 10 employees, everything goes through you. And at one point in time, you have to learn that in order to scale the business, you have to scale yourself. And I think that's probably where a lot of our audience here is at. They don't know how to scale themselves yet. They have to let go.
Letting go is not easy.
No, it's not.
Do they all trust the process then? Like, once you put these in, are they okay then letting go and saying, okay, we built the process. Now I can put my mental energy on something that's actually worth putting my mental energy into?
So that's probably the best part of what we do here at Method is seeing how much it changes the entrepreneur's vision for their business, how they can actually do the things that they want to do and not be stuck in being in the weeds, doing manual tasks, holding their company back. So I would say the answer is absolutely. Once they have identified a process that needs to be automated and they automate that process, they move on very quickly to something else. And it's rapid fire. So they've automated one thing with Method before you know it, they've done 10. So all they want to do is find all the things that are they're the current bottleneck of and automate all of those one at a time.
I like it. I mean, to me, everything, as I always say, your business is a system. Figure out the system, document, process, implement, and then let the people run the system. And then the business owner can go think about the business instead of working in the weeds of the business, because that's where profits soar. That's where things dramatically shift. That's where you get the time and the space to actually improve your business and do things differently. But that doesn't always happen. If you're stuck in the weeds, you're kind of screwed.
Yeah, I'm just thinking of some other examples where it's sometimes trust and other times just being able to replicate something that's working. There's examples we've had in the past, quite often around the whole quoting systems, where they will have one rep have hired their first sales rep, and they've issued a whole number of quotes, and then the rep's gone. They either got fired or they left, and the company has no way of knowing which quotes went out to who and why. And without a quoting system, it's just done through email. But a quoting system is very hard to track all that down. It takes a while. And there's other ones where they have multiple reps and some are successful and some are not. And trying to figure out what is one rep doing that's different from the other reps, and replicating that and scaling success. The common workflow that we see on, especially like professional service industries, is they are sending out engagement letters. And the process typically is they'll open Microsoft Word, save as the previous quote they sent out, and change the quote around to now it successfully mirrors what they want to send to their prospective client. Open up their inbox, attach the quote, send it saying, please contact me with any questions. I hope we work well together. And then it just sits there. There's no follow-up mechanism. Hopefully the client follows up. If they do, then there's the back and forth trying to get payment, back and forth trying to get signatures, and then start the work. So what we've automated for a lot of customers is around proposals. You go into the system to create a quote. That way it's visible to the whole company, whether you've stayed with the company or not. You choose a template, which is your standard template for that type of work. You hit send from the software. It goes to their inbox. They click on it. You get a notification saying they clicked on it. They approve it, or they do the signature, and they pay their setup fee. And you get a notification coming back saying it's complete. And the invoice and the payment is automatically entered into QuickBooks. Completely automated, replicated across every rep. And you can easily see who's sending out more quotes and which ones are being accepted and why.
That's a big part of what we like to look at. So again, everything comes back to a math equation. And so now if you do this, I can look at the math of my sales department. So the first question is, how many quotes did each rep send out this month? This rep sent out 10. This one sent out 20. This one sent out 14. So is there a reason that there are differences? So that's question one. Number two, I look at it and go, okay, this rep sent out 20 quotes. 2 were accepted. This rep sent out 10 quotes, but 8 were accepted. So wait a minute, who's actually better, right? Okay. And the second question is how do I get the guy who's sending 20 to get his closing ratio up to 16? Because if I can teach him with a little bit of effort, that doesn't cost money. It costs a little bit of time. And in that particular case, I could literally, my sales go up 600% without spending money. And more often people, I need more leads. And invariably will be like, well, how are you handling all the current leads you have? Can you show me what your rates are? Can you show me who followed up? Oh, we don't have time to follow up with them. Excuse me? You want more leads, but you don't follow up with the ones you're getting. And so throwing money at more leads is somehow going to change the equation. It doesn't work that way. The more and more details we can get, the more and more we can put the numbers into the math, the more and more we can make better decisions. And that's a big part of it.
And I think that the visibility into the numbers, visibility into what they're doing as a manager, you need. How could you possibly ask or answer those questions if it's all being done from their individual inboxes? You couldn't. Now, when you're 3 or 4 people at a company, it's probably okay. You probably haven't bought the systems yet. You can probably still just reach around the desk and ask how many they've sent out. But as you scale beyond 10, 11 employees, that's where it becomes very hard and the systems come in place.
I've always been of the belief that you should build the systems up front and make sure they work before you scale. Because, if I've got 2 employees and they each make 1 mistake, it's not so bad. I can fix it. But if I now have 20 employees and they each make 1 mistake, I've got 20 problems to fix, which then really screws up my profitability. Because I'll tell you, I've worked with people in the trades, and it's true for everything else. Mistakes cost tremendous amounts of money, and most businesses can't see the cost of mistakes unless they truly know their numbers.
So I would agree with you on critical systems. I personally would not put in systems in place up front when you're really, really small on everything. I think you could overprocess your company and cripple under the inability to do anything. Like we're 100 people today, but when we're 5 or 6 people, those are my favorite times. You can be scrappy. You can get stuff done. You don't have to go through hoops. You start to learn what processes you should build and which ones you should wait till later. Like how many 5 or 6 person companies have built an HR system into place yet?
Yeah,
like that happens way later, right?
And I get that, but I think at the beginning, we at least need a billing system, right?
Yes.
If you've got to do quoting, we need a quoting system.
Yeah.
And then I need some sort of system to tell me that I actually got paid. Like, I know I sent this invoice, but did they send me the money and did it end up in my bank account?
I think that's why so many small businesses use QuickBooks, and it's their primary system of record up until a very later stage. There's 31 million businesses in North America. 7 million of them have 1 employee or more, and 6 million of them use QuickBooks. So like what you're saying is absolutely right. The accounting is the number one system to start off with.
You just said to me that 25 million businesses don't have an accounting system, probably.
24, but yes.
24 million. Okay. Which is a major problem. Like if you don't, and not to say that you have to use QuickBooks. Honestly, if you're smaller, I think there's some other softwares that are more intuitive. When I have to use QuickBooks, I usually scream. And I know how to use accounting software. It's just they've made the online version so non-intuitive, and it's got gremlins in it. I know, because sometimes I've had to go in and help clients clean it up.
The other million is Xero, the other accounting system, and a few others, right? And so they're a little more simple.
Xero, yes. Xero is much more simple and much more user intuitive. I don't like the reports that come out of Xero because they put them out in a format that's not easy for me to work with, but I can manipulate the data when I know what it is that they're doing. And, some businesses use Excel, and honestly, if you're that small, I'm okay with an Excel sheet, but you've got to make sure that you've at least tracked all of these things. But along the same lines, this is once these guys get to making money, the second problem we figure out, and this is where I see hiccups all the time in business sales. Like, okay, we did well. We're doing 3, 4, $500,000 today. Are we going to do $500,000 tomorrow? Like, are we going to continue on this pace, or can you tell me the early warnings of a symptom that something is going wrong in your sales system? Because depending on how long that cycle is, or how busy you get delivering stuff, you forget about the sales side and you go through a serious roller coaster. And I can tell you, coming off the top of the roller coaster to the bottom, it's a wild ride.
And I think it really depends on the business too. If you can be in a business that has recurring revenue,
you got to build that business model, right?
Yeah, and that's a tough one. I've run a perpetual software company where you're selling the license for thousands of dollars and then you're waiting for next year's renewal with nothing in between. And I transitioned that company to a SaaS company where you are charging a price per month. It's a very hard transition to make. But once you're there, recurring revenue is gold. You can really plan out your own growth and make sure you're not going to fall flat in your face tomorrow. And not every business can do that. So some service businesses can do that. The best a manufacturing company probably can do is subscription purchases of repeatable items, or just really good retention of marketing on their existing customer base.
So I'll challenge that, because we're talking with lawyers about subscription businesses. Doctors definitely can do subscription businesses. In the trades, I mean, you can do it through some kind of warranty or protection plans, or it's probably harder. It really depends on what kind of trade you're in and whether or not it's something that's more repetitive from that standpoint. But for me, it's just a question of, are you at least tracking? For lack of a better word, is the phone ringing? And when are your busy times and when are your slow times? And can you move your jobs around to handle that? Do I need to maybe advertise in the off season? Is that possible? Does it work for your business? And if I'm in a business that's getting large one-time payments, am I taking the money that I'm getting in this large payment, putting it aside and doling it out over 12 months or as the work is completed? Or am I spending the money today, and then when it comes time to do the job that I got paid for, do I not have cash for it? Now I got to go sell another job to complete that job. Now we're on a hamster wheel that's going the wrong direction.
Gotcha. So I can see why we're the CFO in you has to answer those questions. For us, we'll probably spend some time on a regular basis helping our clients with reporting. But a lot of that reporting can also be done in the accounting software. And our job as a front end system is to send real-time data, invoices, payments, inventory, reservations to the accounting system, so that all the rich reporting that's in the accounting system is up to date instantly with the current reality. I imagine you spend a lot of time going in there in the accounting system and getting a lot of those reports yourself.
I do, and they can be automated. So what we find is, for most of the smaller end of businesses, they don't have real-time numbers. A lot of the stuff, especially if they have outside bookkeepers, they're 30 to 45 days behind, if not further. And again, you talked about 31 million businesses, but as we said, I think the vast majority of them don't have good systems, processes, and clear understanding of their cash flow and of the factors that you're helping them with to make sure that it's going to continue tomorrow. I mean, that's the biggest thing one of the biggest things we've able to do for some of the larger companies is just show them, based on what's happening today, here's what your cash flow looks like for now through the end of the year. And it's just having that insight to go, oh, okay, things are okay. Or they can look out and we can, we're recording in June. I can look out at one of my clients and say, October is going to be a tough month for you. November is great. September is great. October, we're going to have cash flow crisis. So what can we do today in June to cover October? Instead of, holy crap, it's the third week of October. How do I make payroll?
Yeah, the other way they can do that is have a sales manager whoever's acting as a sales manager looking at their opportunity pipeline as well, because you really want to have an opportunity pipeline filled with stages, and making sure that each stage has a respectable number of deals going through, so they're not all front loaded or back loaded. Those would be early indicators of tomorrow's success. That November, as you mentioned there, doesn't happen, and there really aren't any deals that are going to come through in November. You get those in the earlier stages now.
So are you able to help them with that as well? Because that's one of the big things we like to do. We like to take every opportunity. If we're lucky, we can get the sales reps to say, this is interest. Maybe it's a 10%. We'll actually add out the numbers. So chances of this closing 10%, chances of this closing 50%, chance of this closing 90%. And we can sit down and we can forecast. It's going to give me a large number, right? It says, oh, you've got 3 million in the pipeline. And I know we're not going to bring in the 3 million, but I can start to see how the pipeline changes month to month. If it's 3 million, 3.2, 2.8, 2.1, something's broken in the pipeline. Now we go investigate and figure it out.
Yeah, I think that's one of the harder parts for people who are new to CRM to really appreciate. I think a lot of people start off with CRM knowing it can do deals, pipelines, opportunities, whatever you want to call them, whatever the CRM calls them. Someone new into the CRM will just start off with, I'm going to load my contacts in here and I'm going to track the conversations I have with them, which is fine. That is a huge improvement probably from what they're doing today. That way someone else in the office can view what was talked about by another person in the office and they can provide the same customer service. But the adding of opportunities and deals is really the next big thing to hop on. And I would say most people don't implement it until way later as a CRM.
That's what keeps people up at night. Like, how is next month going to be? Business owners aren't like, what did my QuickBooks say happened 45 days ago? That's never a question, right? The question is, what's going to happen next month? Do I have enough business in the pipeline? Will I be able to continue?
So we see what you're seeing across our entire customer base. But as I mentioned to you earlier before we started recording here, is a lot of our customers don't even use this as a CRM. They're using this as process management. And so like we're talking a lot of terms today, like process and workflows. Maybe we should define at least what a workflow is.
Let's define a workflow.
So a step of sequential steps to complete a task. Maybe my simple definition of a workflow. But how many companies have written down what those workflows are that they do across their business every single day? And what a great place to start.
It is. And it's funny, when my kids were young, we went to a coding seminar. And what they did was they said, hey, coding's nothing more than a workflow. And so they'd have a kid come up to the front of the room and they'd say, somebody lay out for us the steps he needs to do to make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. Right? It's just that simple. And it's like, put the peanut butter on the bread. And they're like, well, how do you put peanut butter on the bread? Exactly. How do you do that? Right? It's open the jar, use this knife, scoop it out, scoop out this much, spread it and when you start to do that and you create the processes, then honestly, life gets easier. And when there's a problem, you fix the process. You don't fix the person, right? I think it really takes a lot of blame off the employee We clearly didn't build a good process. If you think this is crazy, look at McDonald's. Look at who they hired to run their restaurants, and they can do it well and deliver to you across the entire world, right? They built good processes and they trained to the processes.
Yes. And I think that's what every business who wants to scale has to do. I think it's fine when you're 0 to 10 employees, you do all that in your head. And then one day you're so big that what's in your head doesn't work anymore. And that's when you write it down. So you write down these processes, what your steps are, how to build all your peanut butter sandwiches. And then you figure out which ones you're going to keep doing manually, which ones you're going to do through automation.
So here's what we find. They get up to that 1 to 5 million mark, and now they got to get it out of their head on paper, but they're too busy getting it done, and they no longer have the time. And then they're stuck. They're in the catch-22 of the moment.
Can they afford to hire a process consultant?
Probably.
Well, that's one way.
But you're right. But the problem is they still got to get it out of their head as the business owner and onto paper, which takes a lot of time, which takes their eye off the ball of what else is going on.
I think that's was it Michael Gerber, the E-Myth, way back in the day when we were younger? That book came out. I think that's what he talked about there, right? I think that's the challenge. I think if they don't allocate the time to write down at that point in time, they haven't done so already, what it is they do to get it automated, then they need to hire a process consultant or delegate someone in their company who they trust to do it for them.
Is there anything else that we should have talked about today but didn't get a chance to?
I know we're talking a lot about software, but really the only thing I would press upon your listeners is if they're not in the business of adopting software, at least write down what those processes are so they can figure out how to automate them or make them repeatable. It's not just about software. It's about making them repeatable.
Correct. Software is nothing more than the implementation, and one way to implement. There are multiple ways to do it. Pen and paper, right? And honestly, what we tell people is iPhone and video. And, if you're out and you're installing a pool, record the major steps, put down the different parts that need to be looked at so that somebody who comes in can literally go to the video library and just go, okay, that's what this means. Or if you've got software in your office that you use, they can see the cursor, click here. Oh, there. Okay. I click there. And then we tell them if the software changes, have whoever's responsible for doing it just re-record the 3-minute video, and then you're off and running again.
Yeah, sounds great. And there's a really good tool called Loom that we use for that internally for recording screen grabs of what your process is. Like if you're writing down a long document of this is how I do things, and you're like, it's better to show video. I recommend Loom. It's free.
We love free.
Yeah, it's free. There's no excuse. It records what you're doing. It echoes what you've already written down. And at least the next person can take it over for you.
And that's the key. If people would like to learn more about you and the company, what's the best way for them to find out more?
They can go directly to our website, which is method.me. They can hit me up on Twitter at Paul Alex Jackson. I've also my LinkedIn, which is also Paul Alex Jackson.
We'll make sure to put that in the show notes. Thank you so much for joining us today. After we stopped recording, Paul and I chatted a little longer. He mentioned that guitar company and the need to send out invoices based on the amount was a customer service integration they built for around $300 to $400. It literally paid for itself in one use of the CEO's time. The reality is this is a lot easier than you can imagine. Paul has a new offering to help you figure it all out based on a conversation we had after I hit stop recording. Check out the workflow checklist he created just for you. There is a link in the show notes. Ask yourself, what are the things you hate doing that you are the bottleneck in, and how do we get it off your plate?
If you'd like for us to be a part of your profitability journey, we have different programs available ranging from do-it-yourself to one-on-one coaching. Our course, The Profit Blueprint, teaches you everything you need to know to transform your profitability. There are 3 different tiers ranging from DIY to done with you so that businesses of all sizes can get the support that's best. Join the waitlist in the show notes to get more information and be a part of the next cohort. If you want a done-for-you service, you can hire us as your Chief Profitability Officers. We only work with a handful of clients, so they all get our full attention. We work with business owners who have or are growing to $500,000 to $10 million in revenue. You can use the scheduling link in the show notes to get on our calendar for a good fit conversation to see if we're the right people to support you and how we can help you.
This episode of the Profit Answer Man podcast is brought to you by SMBpodcastnetwork.com. The network is a collection of podcasts and shows from around the internet which focus on bringing you interviews with amazing guests who share actionable advice, ideas, and information for small and medium-sized business owners and entrepreneurs. Visit www.smbpodcastnetwork.com to find more great shows and easily subscribe to be notified of new episodes. It's a great way to discover quality content. If you've discovered us via the network, then I hope you enjoy today's show and will consider subscribing directly so you never miss our episodes. Remember to check out my other podcast, Richer Soul, where we talk about how to live the ultimate life and be the best business owner you can be. As we close out, let's repeat the mantra. Revenue is vanity, profit is sanity, and cash is king. Have an abundant and profitable week.